You either love somebody or you hate them.
Seems 1,000 centuries ago.
This war, things get confused out there.
All that matters is that you are alive. You are alive, Captain.
Horror has a face, and you must make a friend of horror.
I would like to thank those who have supported my channel by watching, subscribing, and commenting on my videos. I really appreciate your support and welcome you to part 2 of my 2-part film analysis of Francis Ford Coppola's 1979 Vietnam War epic Apocalypse Now Redux, directed by Francis Ford Coppola and co-written by Coppola and John Milius. The film stars Marlon Brando as Colonel Walter E. Kurtz, Robert Duvall as Lieutenant Colonel William Bill Kilgore,
You know that gasoline smell?
Martin Sheen as U.S. Army Captain Benjamin Willard, Frederic Forrest as Engineman 3rd Class J. Chef Hicks, Albert Hall as Chief Petty Officer George Phillips,
Captain, you just on for the ride.
Sam Bottoms as Gunner's Mate 3rd Class Lance B. Johnson, Laurence Fishburne as Gunner's Mate 3rd Class Tyrone Mr. Clean Miller, Dennis Hopper as an American photojournalist, Harrison Ford as Colonel G. Lucas, and G. D. Spradlin as Lieutenant General R. Corman. Apocalypse Now Redux is loosely based on Joseph Conrad's 1899 novella Heart of Darkness. Whereas Conrad's novella is set in the Congo, Apocalypse Now Redux is set in the Vietnam War. If you like this breakdown of Apocalypse Now Redux, I would appreciate it if you would subscribe to the Godfather of Cinema, movie reviews and more. Give this video a thumbs up, leave a comment, and hit the bell so that you won't miss any new videos that I'll upload in the future. From a lieutenant colonel ordering his soldiers to surf the beach of an LZ under heavy enemy fire, to Playboy bunnies throwing a show for paratroopers, Marines, and sailors at an outpost while Charlie, the Viet Cong, the enemy, is squatting in the bush, to a soldier taking time out to go mango picking in a war zone, to a bridge under construction and under siege at an outpost of marooned U.S. soldiers fighting for their lives.
Who's the commanding officer here?
And not much else.
Ain't you?
Willard understands now why Kurtz got off the boat and quit the whole program. But unlike Kurtz, who takes orders from no one, Willard is still an errand boy for the corporation. Up to this point in his career, he has never had any trouble killing other men, not even by hand, many so close that they could blow their last breath in his face. He cannot remember any of their faces. Nor does he lose any sleep over shooting the girl on the sampling boat to put her out of her misery, because he could not identify with her nor any of those he killed on behalf of the CIA, because they were not like him. However, looking at Kurtz's picture, reading his dossier, and taking the same trail snaking up the Nung River like a main circuit cable to the man's heart and stronghold in the Cambodian jungle changes everything for Willard. Because now, the corporation is sending him to kill someone like him, an American, and an officer, neither of which should make any difference. But it does.
I don't follow, sir.
For unlike that girl he shot and killed on the Sampan fishing boat and the many men he killed for the CIA, there is a moral conflict in accepting the mission to kill Walter E. Kurtz. Willard never wanted to get off of the boat by killing an American and fellow soldier like himself, someone he could relate to, but this time it is necessary.
You're goddamn right.
Frederic in order to stop a madman from destroying the Cambodian jungle and the people there that worship him like he is a god and follow his every order, no matter how ridiculous. This will be Willard's last mission, the Archangel. Apocalypse Now Redux. In the book of Genesis in the Holy Bible, Adam and Eve sinned but thought that they could hide their sins by covering themselves with fig leaves. And likewise, in Francis Ford Coppola's 1979 Vietnam War epic Apocalypse Now Redux, Chief tries to take a girl to see a medic.
Bring her on board.
For injuries he caused by shooting up the girl's family on their fishing boat. And then an army priest gives communion to dead Viet Cong soldiers in a coastal village. And then there are the commanders of ComSec intelligence at Nha Trang sending Colonel Kurtz and other trained killers to do humanitarian work. Captain Willard detests lies and hypocrisy, for after completing his first tour in Vietnam, he returns to the United States and hardly says a word to his wife before saying yes to a divorce. Willard has gotten all the way off of the boat as Colonel Kurtz has gotten all the way off the boat after seeing for himself the extremes to which one must go in order to defeat the enemy. Willard has no trouble killing on behalf of his country. However, ComSec intelligence ordering him to kill Kurtz is different.
I don't follow, sir.
As reading Kurtz's diary and taking the same journey up the Nung River while experiencing the same horrors and hypocrisies as Kurtz creates in Willard a moral conflict that he does not experience in killing foreigners on behalf of his country. Not even the 6 people that he can remember killing, close enough to blow their last breath in his face. For the first time, Willard has to kill someone he can relate to, someone like him, an American and an officer, which is why Kurtz found no moral conflict in killing the Vietnamese double agents, because, as he explains to Willard, he detests the stench of lies, as double agents are by definition imposters or liars, playing both ends against the middle by supporting 2 opposing ideas, which is impossible. For, as the photojournalist tells Willard, you cannot love someone and hate them at the same time. Out on the Nung River, Lance opens a grenade and purple smoke engulfs the boat, blinding them, and consequently, Mr. Clean is shot and killed. His death affects everyone on the boat, for the purple smoke is a metaphor for detachment, coinciding with Willard's own detachment from all of the men he killed for the CIA, none of whom he knew or cared about. Mr. Clean's death clears up the purple haze for Willard because he was in the boat with Mr. Clean, who was also an American soldier, as reading Kurtz's dossier reconnects Willard to the Nung River and the moral and emotional conflict of having to kill someone he can relate to as a human being like himself. By the time Willard and his crew arrive at the French plantation of Gaston de Marais, the last colonial holdover from the First Indochina War, they are far from where they started. However, they are still in the boat and still men. They are not savages yet. However, Chef and Lance almost look like savages, with blood and dirt caked on their faces and bodies. But after showering, they return to looking like men. But even so, Chef has to remind Lance that he is still a man and not a savage by stopping him from eating with his bare hands at the dinner table. And then there is Willard. Making love to Roxanne Sarrault reminds him of the part of himself he sacrificed in abandoning his marriage for the jungle. Now, I'll go a little more in depth, starting with the airstrike. The airstrike represents the penalty of death over Adam and Eve after they disobeyed God in the Garden of Eden. Let me explain. The word Almighty is the radio code for the airstrike to destroy Kurtz's Cambodian stronghold.
Milius 3 tank, this is Almighty. Do you read me over?
And the natives that worship him as a god. While in the Holy Bible, the word Almighty is also God's name. Also, in slaughtering Colonel Kurtz with the machete, which coincides with the Montagnards sacrificing a water buffalo to their god, Willard avoids the penalty of death as Kurtz represents the foreskin or flesh, separating Willard from God. Remember that killing other men came as easy as breathing for Willard. After all, he had assassinated a government tax collector, among many others close enough to blow their last breath in his face. He is also as cold in shooting the wounded girl in the sampling boat to put her out of her misery instead of taking her to a medic. But killing Kurtz is not as easy as breathing for Willard because he and Kurtz are both Americans. They are both soldiers and they both bear witness to the same hypocrisies and insanities on the Nung River. However, in killing Kurtz and reconnecting with God, Willard is born again and calls off the judgment of the Almighty or the airstrikes to destroy the Cambodian jungle and the natives, whom he now sees as humans like himself. And as the crucifixion of Jesus Christ reopens the tree of life to man after the fall of Adam closes off the tree of life to man, if Willard had not followed through with his mission by crucifying his respect, admiration, and empathy for Colonel Kurtz, Kurtz would have called in for the judgment of the Almighty or the airstrikes to destroy the Cambodian jungle and all of the natives in it, as he had written in his diary. Drop the bomb, exterminate them all.
I still think we ought to take the dice off now. I think for that brown people, we have to go down about 200,000 people. Well, no, I'd rather see some nuclear bomb if you got that ready. And that, I think, would just be too much. The nuclear bomb, that probably. I just want you to think big, Henry, for Christ's sake.
In this passage from the book of Isaiah, Lucifer rebels against God, and similarly in Apocalypse Now Redux, Colonel Kurtz rebels against his commanders after getting all the way off of the boat by staging Operation Archangel, killing 4 Vietnamese double agents and disappearing into the jungle. Another allusion to Kurtz as both Lucifer and Satan occurs at Willard's briefing in Nha Trang, in which General Corman describes Kurtz as a good man or Lucifer before going rogue and becoming a Satan by breaking off with ComSec intelligence or God and going to live among the Montagnards or mankind as a god in the Cambodian jungle or earth. Also compare Kurtz establishing himself as God over the Montagnards with 2 Corinthians chapter 4 and verse 4, which states that in their case the God of this world, meaning Satan, has blinded the minds of the unbelievers or the Montagnards. Now let's take Ephesians chapter 2 and verse 2, describing Satan as the prince of the power of the air, and also the first verse of Isaiah chapter 14, which says, "How you are fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning," and compare both of these verses with Kurtz transferring to, quote, airborne, unquote, or jumping out of airplanes after making the decision to cut off his commanders. And as Lucifer is one of 3 archangels, along with Gabriel and Michael, so is Kurtz's operation called Archangel, which he carried out on his own without official clearance from ComSec intelligence at Nha Trang. In the same way that Adam, in eating the forbidden fruit, rejects God's authority by doing things his way, Kurtz rejects his commander's authority at not trying by doing things his way. Consequently, in choosing to go their own way, both Adam and Colonel Kurtz are cut off from their sources. Mankind's disconnection from the Garden of Eden and Lucifer's banishment from heaven are both parables of Kurtz's memory of the Ohio River and the Gardenia there that was so beautiful at one time that it seemed as though
Heaven just fell on the earth.
Also, compare Kurtz's description of the Gardenia as like heaven had fallen to earth with the Lord's Prayer in Matthew chapter 6 and verse 10 in the Holy Bible. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Also, there is Genesis chapter 2 and verse 15, which states that the Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and take care of it. Now compare Genesis chapter 2 and verse 15 and Kurtz's description of the Gardenia as having fallen to a wild and overgrown state with the Garden of Eden after God kicks man out of it. For without man to cultivate the garden means that it would also fall to a wild and overgrown state. Now, let's compare the Gardenia and the Garden of Eden to Kurtz's stronghold in the Cambodian jungle. The neglected states of the Gardenia and Eden are both metaphors implying what the Cambodian jungle became after Kurtz got off the boat and cut himself off from ComSec intelligence, or his source. Also compare Adam being banned from the Garden of Eden and breaking off his relationship with God by sinning, to Captain Willard divorcing his wife so that he could return to the jungle, and also to Colonel Kurtz breaking off with his commanders and building a stronghold in the Cambodian jungle. Captain Willard has killed many people in Vietnam. However, he cannot remember any of the people he killed. Therefore, as a flaming sword turning every which way keeps man from accessing the tree of life in the Garden of Eden, and as the enemy blows up the Do Lung Bridge to keep the American soldiers from crossing it, the horrors of warfare cannot touch Willard's heart by the blood of those he cannot relate to as an American and as an officer, as his capacity to feel the horror of killing human beings can only be restored by the blood sacrifice of Colonel Kurtz, whose death is the price for those whom Willard killed on behalf of the CIA. And after assassinating Kurtz, Willard returns to the boat, the Nung River, and conflicts, Operation Brute Force, and most importantly, that between good and evil, unlike Kurtz, who has conceded his spiritual struggle to evil. It happened when he was an operations officer in the Special Forces, when he and a group were sent into a camp to inoculate children for polio, when he was called back to the camp and found the arms of the very children that they had inoculated in a pile, when his eyes were opened by this incident and the pointlessness of his conflicting roles as a humanitarian and as a killer, that each canceled out the other, as loving someone and hating them at the same time canceled out each other. In Genesis chapter 2 and verse 17, God warned Adam, "But you must not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, for when you eat from it, you will certainly die." For the moment that Kurtz acted on this epiphany of the extremes to which he must go to win at any and all costs was the moment that Kurtz bit the fruit, engaged the enemy his way, and eventually cut himself off from his source, or Nha Trang, and crossed over into the Cambodian jungle with his army. And here, Kurtz, the man, died. As Adam died spiritually by cutting himself off from God's presence in the Garden of Eden, and as a rose begins to die the moment that it is cut off from its source, Kurtz had gotten all the way out of the boat on the river of conflict that connected him to his source and had become an animal. as Willard had gotten all the way out of the boat in divorcing his wife and returning to the jungle until he accepted the mission to redeem himself to the river of love and hate, moral conflict, and God by killing Colonel Walter E. Kurtz. Which takes us back to the question of whether it is possible for conflict to coexist in the same house, to love and hate someone at the same time or exclusively, or whether a person can only be capable of either good or evil but not both. At the French plantation in Apocalypse Now Redux, Madame Sarrault, while smoking opium with Willard, recalls a conversation she and her husband had had before he died of cancer, when she explained to him that he was two men, one that killed and one that loved. When her husband confessed to her that he did not know whether he were an animal or a god, and she told him that he was both an animal as well as a god. Romans chapter 7 verses 21 through 24. So I find this law at work. Although I want to do good, evil is right there with me. For in my inner being I delight in God's law. But I see another law at work in me, waging war against the law of my mind and making me a prisoner of the law of sin at work within me. What a wretched man I am! Who will rescue me from this body that is subject to death? Thanks for watching part 2 of my film analysis of Francis Ford Coppola's 1979 Vietnam War epic Apocalypse Now Redux. And be sure to hit the bell to be notified of my next film analysis that I'll be dropping very, very soon. Until next time.